episode of the Gold Mine Podcast is brought to you by Creating the Best Version of Me, a journal designed for ambitious Christian women who are seeking to increase their self-awareness, find purpose, and embark on the next level of their personal evolution journey. As entrepreneurs, career women, mothers, leaders, world changers, it is so important that we invest in our mindset and well-being, and journaling is one of the simple but powerful ways of doing that. This isn't your typical blank page journal. Besides the carefully curated morning and evening prompts, you'll also find a primary aim questionnaire that is designed to help you clarify your purpose, and a whole section of affirmations to help you retrain your thinking and speaking into positive patterns. This journal is easy to use, has plenty of room for writing and reflecting, and guaranteed to help you become the best version of yourself. You do not want to go through 2019 without this journal. Buy your copy on Amazon today. The link is in the show notes. You're listening to episode 56 of
The Gold Mine Podcast.
As women, we have to invest that time in getting to understand who we are.
Be ambitious, be bold, create the life of your dreams. This is the Gold Mine Podcast with your host, Adrian Dion.
Hey you guys, thanks so much for joining me for another episode of the Gold Mine Podcast. I'm excited to be back with you guys this week because guess what? We have a special guest this week. We haven't had a guest on for a little while now. So I'm excited to have my brother on, and the interview is so good. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. I met Davon through my fiance. They grew up together, and when we first started dating, he told me about this childhood friend, his little brother, who was incarcerated at the time, and he was just like, he's not that guy, I've always worried about him or whatever. And so I kind of just knew of him. But then when he was released from prison, just following him on Instagram, I'm like, wow, this guy is amazing. And you guys are going to see just why I say that in just a little bit. But he is just, we've become really close since then. And I just can't wait for you guys to hear all about his journey. I'm going to start by reading his bio because it's pretty much going to set the tone for the interview. But I just want to say right now, if you're listening, stop what you're doing, screenshot it, share it on your social media, on your social feed, because we want to share this message to as many people as we can. So stop what you're doing, pause it, screenshot, post it, and then come back so you can hear the rest of the interview. All right, you guys, here we go. Davon Woodley was born and raised in Harlem, New York. From childhood, he was exposed to the effects of mass incarceration after his own father spent half of his life incarcerated. At the age of 24, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison in upstate New York. During his incarceration, Davon became a facilitator to help individuals inside transition home with a plan of action, including resources to help lower recidivism and foster holistic, healthy alternatives to living. He also served as a peer advocate for the Prison Rape Elimination Act, which helps all incarcerated brothers suffering from sexual assault get the help they need. Since being released, he has become a social justice leader for all formerly incarcerated individuals. He is an active campaign leader for the Close Rikers campaign, which was created by Just Leadership USA. He was featured on the Fox News' Good Day New York, as well as several other media outlets promoting bail reform and breaking barriers for individuals coming home from prison for successful reentry. And now, having successfully completed parole, he currently serves as a community board member for East Harlem's Human Resources and Economic Development Committees. Davon is a youth job developer for Henry Street Settlement, where he strives for social justice by breaking barriers to stable employment and career development for formerly incarcerated individuals. And he is also pursuing a BA in criminal justice at Nyack College. Wow.
I know, it's a lot.
All right. So first of all, my first question is, how old are you?
I'm 29. I'll be 30 next month, July.
You did a lot in short 30 years. Like, this is crazy how you were put into prison at what, 20?
I was put in at 23.
Oh, 23. Okay. You go in, you do 4 years, and then no, you were sentenced to 4 years, right? You
Yeah,
come
I
out
did.
and like you do all this stuff. Like you're doing stuff in prison, you're doing stuff out of prison. Like that's super dope. Like, have you always been just that type of person to get into like community work and stuff like that?
No, I haven't. To be honest with you, a lot of this didn't spark until after I came home from prison.
Really?
Prior to it, I had no idea what uh, community advocacy was, social criminal justice issues were. Unfortunately, like most people who grew up in a community with lack of resources, we just thought it was the norm. So I went inside, and then I realized that I can create a new norm, and that's exactly what I came home wanting to do.
That is crazy. So, okay, I don't even know where I want to start. So you were sentenced to 4 years, and we've kind of talked about a little bit about that whole situation, but basically you were a first offense. You want to explain that a little bit more?
Yes. So I was a first time offender,
Mhm.
meaning this was my first charge, my first arrest, and I was sentenced to a mandatory minimum of 4 years for an assault charge. Out of that, I did 2 years, 10 months, and 25 days, meaning I came home 6 months early from one of the programs I was involved with while incarcerated. But like for me and most other black men in our community who are charged as first time offenders, they seem to give us this thing called a mandatory minimum, which is technically against the law, especially when it comes to the nature of the crime and what it's considered to be. A lot of times, people with a similar charge for a first time offense may receive a plea deal of probation and or a reduced number of jail time, which could be anywhere between 18 months to 2 years. For me, I was subjected to a mandatory minimum, which we are working to eradicate in New York State and hopefully across the country very soon.
Yes. So Harlem, New York is really on the whole radar right now with the new Netflix of When They See Us, and I didn't watch it because I'm not emotionally with
You gotta
that.
be
Like
prepared.
I was only able to get through episode, like not even the first episode until I was just in tears. I was like, I can't handle this. But I did watch the film by Jay-Z. I can't remember it was a story about a guy who went to,
Police Browder.
yeah, that was a crazy story.
Yeah,
And
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I just couldn't believe like what people deal with inside. So here you are, 23 years old, you have your whole life ahead of you. You get into it was like a domestic assault or whatever, first offense, you're not thinking much of it, you go in, they give you 4 years. What in the world were you thinking at that time?
To be honest with you, you just like you're just going with the motions at that point. You
Really?
know, uh, if anybody who's watching this speaks to someone over the phone who is incarcerated, or if they write letters to them and they are incarcerated, so one thing that you notice is that you kind of talk about things that have sense, and you feel dead, like you honestly feel dead inside,
Wow.
and you know, I say that with a smile on my face because I resurrected new life. I became a new creature. So for me, seeing that that's just part of me dying, it's very numbing. You kind of go through a phase where you just let things happen. You know, of course, I broke down and cried after I got convicted, and I went back. You know, I felt helpless. That was the first emotion I felt. I couldn't walk back out of that courtroom with my family, and that hurt a lot. But then after that, you just kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say suck it up, but you kind of just deal with it. That's what you know how. And you try to find somewhere within yourself to know that everything's gonna be okay. But
Yeah.
it's not. It's abnormal. I don't care how many times it's abnormal. It's like it's really like it's the closest thing to death.
Yeah.
Really.
I can't even imagine, like, yeah, I'm sure you do feel like super helpless and all of that. In your bio, it talks about how you were helping, individuals inside transition. You were, helping out with resources. You were like doing all this stuff. Was that, did that happen initially, or how connected were you with the outside world for you to be able to help someone else transition back on the outside?
Well, it's a good question. I guess because I had access to certain things, like I knew how to navigate the computer, even though we didn't have any internet. I understood, where some of the places were in the books that I read for resources for guys to go home to. I knew exactly what they would have needed. I think the biggest help to me, still to this day, was well, my girlfriend at the time, now my ex-girlfriend. Um, One of my best friends in the entire world. She definitely provided me with all the help I needed, all the knowledge I needed, not only to help myself and keep me empowered and encouraged, but to also help me help others feel
Mhm.
the same exact way. So anytime I needed some additional resources, I'd be like, hey, babe, what's going on? I need your help. There's a gentleman here who needs like housing. I need to go to a shelter. You mind sending me some information on that? Inside you only can get like certain amount of pages paper, and I try to make sure that she fit everything on the allotted amount I can get in each envelope. So sometimes I'll have like five, six, seven different envelopes full of paperwork for different guys with information or resources for them. And then they're like, oh, snap, thanks, man. I'm like, yeah, man, it's not a problem. Give them the entire envelope full of information. They'll come to me and we'll start writing letters to places that they're interested in. So, I mean, even though we didn't have Google or anything, I mean, I still had a level of support at that time that was greatly appreciated and necessary for me to move on to the next stage of my life and help somebody else move on to the next phase in their life as well.
Yeah, that's super dope. So I guess what for me I'm missing is what switched the light, because you said you weren't like this community advocate, you weren't doing this beforehand, but you get there, you're in a space where so many people shut down, they lose themselves, they go crazy, because like you were in prison, right? Like
Yeah.
you weren't like, federal.
Lions, tigers, and bears. That's right.
And just to say, you just for people to know, if you guys get a chance to go follow Davon after this interview. But anyway, you posted a picture not too long ago about the home you were in, like right after you left, right? And that was crazy. Like, if that was a step up, like I'm just like, well, what were you in prison? So like you were
Yeah.
in space. So how did you allow yourself to not be defined by that space or to just shut down? What gave you the initiative to want to help other people and to not just, you know what I'm saying, like close down and just, give up?
I understand. So it's a two-part question. So the first half of that question, when I
Mm-hmm.
was inside, um, I definitely had a spark lit up under me, especially when I found out that I can join a program to let me get home 6 months early. Like,
Oh,
absolutely fine, yeah. I was just like, yeah.
okay.
So that's where I became a transitional service counselor. I was helping guys transition into the facility and also helping them transition outward. I did that for over 2 years. And by doing it for 2 years, you get 6 months off your sentence. You can't have no tickets. You can't get into any trouble. So for me, my goal was to come home 6 months early, period. to my daughter, to my family, at that time, my girlfriend, and definitely do better, make a change. But through that process, I cared less about coming home 6 months early and more about the people I was helping. Made me care a lot more about others than just myself. I think the moment when I helped this gentleman who lived in Albany, I still know him to this day. He was up for parole. He was up for his first parole hearing, and he did 25. He was doing 25 for life, and he was so nervous and scared. He hasn't been in trouble in like 15 plus years. So he was just like, yeah, I just really want to go home. So I helped him with everything: resume, housing, letters, everything, along with a few other people we knew from inside. And when he went to the board, he actually made his first board. And to see that, we put in so much work to help someone come home, really, and see that level of hope in his eyes, like,
Yeah.
uh, people started flooding to me like, "Yo, I need your help, man." I'm just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like they saw me like a golden child almost. But yeah, as far as me coming home transitioning, because I came home 6 months early, means my paperwork had to be done sooner rather than later. And you know how the state works. Any type of city or state government moves slow with paperwork. So when I try to give them alternate, my permanent address, other alternate addresses I could go to, they were predominantly in really nice communities in Harlem, or throughout Manhattan, period. And they were like, no, we can't let you go there because of this, because of that, because of this. And I was just like, this makes no sense. I have a place to stay. I have never been in trouble. It's my first offense. Like, y'all treat me as if, I'm a danger to that community. It's my community. Like, I understand that. So, they said, we're gonna send you to a shelter, men's shelter. To be honest, that's actually worse than prison. The pictures that you saw online was actually a room that they gave me to myself, and I wouldn't sleep on not one of them damn beds. Like, they were disgusting. So I took pictures of it because I wanted to remember how I started, not where I've been, but how I started. And that's what it's kept me humble throughout this entire time. Um, it helped me to realize that, no matter where I laid my head, I'm blessed, I'm grateful, I'm thankful because it's way better than where I started. So I don't have no reason to complain. I don't care if I have a bed that's made up perfectly with the softest sheets ever and I got enough room to walk in and walk out. I don't care. It's better than having 5 beds that I would never want to sleep in my entire life. So
Right.
um, yeah, I wound up in that picture. I don't know if y'all can see, but there was a chair there. I wound up sleeping in the chair, like every single night, and uh, ultimately, leaving after a certain time to go home, shower, and go to work. So it was really rough starting out in the very beginning, but I knew I wanted to create change for myself and for other people. Nobody deserves that. You did your time. You shouldn't be subjected to
Yeah.
living conditions such as this. It's very traumatic, honestly.
Yeah, that's what's up. And what I really love and I really want to highlight for everybody that's listening is that you had a bad situation. You were, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that because I don't want to slide past that and what you
Hmm.
learned from that experience because we're not saying that you did something wrong, you shouldn't pay for it just because it was your first time. But either way, you went in but you had a goal in mind. You were able to see something that you wanted to work towards. And so that really gave you a lot of motivation and inspiration to do what you were doing. But without that goal, you could have been just like any other person in there, just wasting time. But instead, you had that goal. You were seeking a better situation. You invested time in getting books and getting knowledge and doing all this stuff because you had that goal in mind. So I just really want to highlight the power of having goals for yourself
Hmm.
because you can literally change your life just by having a goal. And then the other thing that I really wanted to highlight is for people to really understand that when you were talking about you didn't have the internet, you were still resourceful. You still did whatever you could to get those resources to change your life. You didn't just accept and say, well, here I'm in prison. I don't have, a computer. So I just, I can't do anything here. You use your resources. You use what you could to advance yourself. And I really, really, really like that about you. And so going back just a little bit about your offense. So you got into a domestic assault situation, and it was basically over communication, a little communication issue. And I know that now you're really big on communicating through frustration. So what did you learn from that whole situation about that communication?
Well, to first start off, I just really want to reach out to all the female listeners who are listening to this. Yes, I was arrested for a domestic violence dispute that I had against my daughter's mother. Unfortunately, it was based off of the communication, the lack thereof that we had with one another. I think ultimately it came down to respect, and how at the time I viewed masculinity. You know, um, I was raised very submissively,
Mm-hmm.
meaning like in public, I was the king, I was the prince, I'm the handsome little boy with the nice curly hair, gone now, but I was highly revered, but behind closed doors, I was to be seen and not heard. I grew up in a household where you know being a dominant male didn't really exist because even, my parents, my stepfather and my mom went through it, and then I seen how submissive my stepfather became. It surprised me even meeting my dad. And I saw how the women in my family and within my community treated most of the men, young boys like me. So like I grew up with a lot of passive aggression, I guess I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really know how to translate that because I never really had a chance to talk about my feelings,
Yeah.
how I've been dealing with things or how I channel and process stuff. Like most, I don't know, you can speak for the black community, when you're young, when you're a young black kid, period, and you get your ass whipped by your family members, it's like all hugs, kisses, and kumbaya
Yeah.
right after you just got spanked. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people don't realize that's the first cycle of abuse right there. You go through the physical stage and then you have the romance stage, and that's pretty much the type of relationship you develop with your parents. I'm glad that cycle has changed over the years, but for us, it was to keep us in line, but at the same time, it also caused a great deal of emotional distress. Um, I say all of that to say this, when me and her had our argument, it got really out of control and really heated to the point where I really hurt somebody that I really care about, and I was wrong and I admit that. But at the same time, I didn't know how to properly discuss or properly convey my frustration. And
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the biggest problems I had growing up is because you never really talk about your feelings. So while I was inside, one of the biggest struggles I had was being able to do that in such a violent environment, because we are dealing with frustrations every single day.
Right.
Nobody wants to be there. Nobody wants their freedom taken away. Nobody's happy. So, in order for me to stay in this program and to go home 6 months early, I had no choice but to learn how to communicate my frustrations. I had no choice but to convey my frustrations and anger in healthy, positive ways. So that required me to go to church more, which I love praying. It required me to read more about my emotional awareness and start writing and journaling letters to family, telling them how I feel, and start really diving deep into why I feel the way that I do. Because in prison, you're one situation away from it being a life or death situation, and it's you or me. And I don't ever want to be in that situation with anybody.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go home. I don't know about you, but I can't stay here no more. So I'm not even on front. I'd rather just suck it up, be the punk. If you want to call me that, cool. But I'm alive to see another day. You
Yeah.
know, I'm going home. This
Yeah.
punk is walking out of this door. But I had to learn early on that I have a tendency of knowing that, I mean, I know these hands work, but now thankfully these hands work for Jesus. A little righteous and ratchet.
Right, right.
But I had to really learn and understand that my life isn't supposed to be what others perceive it to be. My life is to be what I make of it, and what I wanted for myself is to be able to tell people how I feel without people pleasing. You know, and
Hmm.
regardless if it's good, bad, or indifferent, I'm gonna tell you what's on my mind. You don't have to ask me. I know people aren't mind readers, so I just decided from inside that I'm gonna make that change, and I'm gonna make sure that every young black man knows how to do the same as well.
Wow, that is so so inspiring, so great because you touched on a lot of different things just from our childhood behaviors, what we see. A lot of times we don't even understand how broken relationships play a part of our adult lives. You know what I'm saying? And so
That's
that's
very
why
true.
it's so important. That's why I do what I do here on this podcast, to talk about things, the mindset, talk about the emotional awareness, so that people start to pay attention more so of the behaviors and the thought processes that they have kept from their childhood, because we do have the ability to change them. And so I love how you showed how that played such a big part in what happened, and not to make an excuse of it, but it's not an excuse. It's actually uh the way that we process and the way that we behave all comes from that. And so thank you for showing the connection in the two. And then also, what you learned, you're able to practice that every single day. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And not just, a lot of times, a lot of people, when they're incarcerated, they say, like, I'm gonna make this change and all this type of stuff. When they get out, it's a different story, and they really haven't made real change. Um, what do you think makes the difference in the two?
Uh, you have a choice to make. You can come home. You can either be bitter or better.
Yeah.
The choice is yours. If you continue to feel like your prison life is going to matriculate into your physical free life, then there's something you have to let go of. Definitely.
Hmm.
That's something that I learned early on. I did not want to take anything from prison home with me, like at all.
Yeah.
But I wind up taking like certain positive things with me though. I did. But a lot of times I see, people just come home, and even when I see them in the street, and they were mad about something before they left, and I was just like, why do you care? Why do you care? Like, you're telling me about something in prison that you are upset about while we are on 125th Street right now? Are you serious? Do you not see where we are right now? And people have a huge problem with disassociating themselves from their trauma, and I get that. For me, it took me a little while to disassociate from mine too. I mean, you have certain behaviors that you've gotten used to that are like instilled in you for no reason. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and it could be like the dumbest thing. It could be from something as small as like getting in the shower with your drawers on. Like, I felt naked
Yeah.
being naked in the shower. Like, I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's very true. Like, some
Yeah.
stuff like that doesn't leave you.
Yeah.
And then what else is there? Other times, I would have other behaviors like I have a tendency to just stand in line and I don't even know why I'm in the line. Like because because you're so used to like seeing a group of people just formulating a line. So it's like I would just like be walking with my phone and I'll see a line and I'll stand on it. I'm like, why the hell am I here? So
Right.
it's like small little things, small little behaviors that took a while for me to alleviate,
Mhm.
and then it goes into the bigger trauma, like, dreaming that you are still in there, like stuff like that. It takes time to really disassociate yourself. So fortunately, I didn't have those experiences where I've been into physically harming situations, but I do know a lot of people who have, and it's very triggering. So I can understand why they don't like being around big crowds. I can
Yeah.
understand why they rather eat by themselves any type of meal. I can understand why, when we talk, they got their back facing the wall or something. I get that. Like there's certain things that I really do understand, and that's my goal. Now that I'm home, I want to teach emotional wellness and awareness to a lot of men who suffer from those things, as well as anybody who has never been incarcerated who still feels as though they don't have a space for themselves to actually get whatever they have off of their chest in a safe space around other vulnerable men as well. Because that is one of the toughest things to do is, you feel as though you either have to pay somebody a ridiculous amount of money to just talk to a stranger, or you have to be in a relationship with someone, or you can only trust your one close best friend. And all those are great options. But when you are in a room full of 10, 15 men, and y'all all talking about certain issues that you have, you come to find out that we are all the same. In
Mhm.
prison, out of prison, doesn't matter. Never been arrested once, doesn't matter. We all deal with a certain level of stress and emotional pain that we just need to get off our chest. So those are some of the things that I do now that I'm home, as well
Yeah.
as, keeping perspective for me, because it's for me too, being home from incarceration now, being off of parole, which I'm super happy about.
Yeah.
You have certain things that you try to make sure that you keep yourself in check for, because a wise man once told me, call yourself into account before you are accounted for, and I thought that was the most powerful thing, because making yourself responsible for every aspect of you. And I'd rather be responsible for myself than somebody else being responsible for my well-being,
Right.
So it's been a journey. It's been a journey.
That is so crazy, and I love the way you brought light to that whole thing of like, you laugh at people. Like I have an uncle, he he did like 25 years or something. Yo, he is
Yeah.
super weird. Like, we always laugh at him or whatever about little stuff he does, call him crazy. But these are things can be traumatic experiences that put them over the edge, and so that is why they have a lot of the behaviors that they have.
Hmm.
And just until you said that, now I just realized like where some of that could even be coming from, and how it does take time, and you feel alone when you come outside. A lot of times you see people who you feel like they function better in jail than outside. Like I have a bunch of people that I know like that. It seems like they just do better when they're locked up. And so having somebody like you or having programs that can help people transition, that's amazing. Super, super needed. So that's what's up. You touched a little bit on like prayer and all of that. How has spirituality helped you in your journey?
Extremely. Even though my name's Davon, I'd rather be called Champ, all times Champ. That's my handle while I was inside, and it's actually an acronym. It stands for Christ handles all my problems.
Mm,
I keep that in the forefront, at all times. It's actually based off of my favorite scripture in the Bible, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You know, um, I love that verse because it doesn't solely make you rely on your faith or your spirituality. It makes you resilient within yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because the word I can means that you have to do,
Mm-hmm.
and everything else thereafter you deal with is already covered, in the blessings and blood of Jesus Christ. So for me, that is the most important thing. Like, I get tired of when people used to tell me, just pray on this, just ask, do what you gotta do. Oh, faith without works is dead. So Bible teaches you to actually be active in your spirituality. And that's what I feel like I do. I believe in faith, favor, and victory. So I'm always going to be a service to my people, or a service to anyone who needs help, period. So I try to make sure that I can do all that I can to be a river to my people, as Will Smith said.
Yeah.
just continuously just have that continuous sense of flow. So my spirituality it it was struggle. It was a lot of struggle when I first came home, because it's like all these triggers are happening at the same time, and it's physical. It's not in your mind. So it's a little different, because the devil tries to attack your mind, not
Mm-hmm.
anything else. That's really what. But it was more physical. The environment I was living in, the conditions I was subjected to, parole. Fearful of going back inside. So it's like I struggled with it, but I knew that if I kept pushing through, whether I prayed every day, whether I read the Bible, whether I did any of these things, that I will always give glory to God and be thankful for where I am, and not where I was. So um, my spirit was definitely carried through many different situations. Definitely was. But where it stands today is stronger than ever. It's definitely in a space where I know that I need to step up, and I'm learning how to do so. Whether it's through my mentorship that I started with my church, with a group of young men from my junior high school, or even coming in contact with, wonderful people like you, and spreading the message of encouragement and positivity to anyone I can, and then also and making it available to anybody who wants it. I try to be as vulnerable as possible. People ask me what's my greatest strength. I will say my vulnerability. And I will tell them, if they want to reach out, talk. They can always hit me up, slide in my DM. I really don't care. Because the last thing I want anybody to do is feel like they don't have anyone to turn to. But you can't say nothing when you actually have someone saying, hit me up, hit my line. So that's that's really how I carry my feed every day.
That's amazing. You're just an amazing person. I really appreciate you coming on. And so I guess I want to talk to you about a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about, I know what you advocate for. Of course, your bio says it all. But what can we do? Somebody who don't really know a lot about the whole process of incarceration or transitioning people and the laws that we need to help get eradicated. What can we do to help the whole movement? Because I know you're all for ending mass incarceration, and which that's a big ordeal. But how do we even get started? What can we do to help and get more education about what's going on?
Uh, Word of mouth. I'm gonna quote my organization founder. He said, "People who are closest to the problem are the furthest from the solution." So, one of the things that I truly believe in is, if you know somebody who's been formerly incarcerated, don't be afraid to ask them all the ignorant questions in the world, because at the end of the day, you want to learn more about them and the injustices they encounter, and then it will cause you to be like, let me look this up. Why is it like this? Or if you're somebody in a position to employ one of them, do so. Give someone a chance. Let them prove you wrong from what you actually know. Give them a chance and an opportunity to actually be a returning citizen of that community. Well, I shouldn't say citizen, a returning member of that community. The reason why that's so important is because you can't ask, what can I do? and there's and then you think Googling something or following a page or
Yeah.
supporting a cause by reposting it is enough. No, you have to get involved with formerly incarcerated people. You have to be willing to sit down and talk to somebody you necessarily wouldn't be seen any time of day talking to. So you have to give that person a chance, no matter their circumstance, no matter what they were charged for, because the first thing you have to keep in mind is that they are not their crime. They are a human being. They were charged with something, whether it was a mistake, a repeat offender. They are home. They are trying to do better for themselves. So it is your job, if you really want to do this work, to help them. And then staying engaged. You can reach out to anyone. To be honest with you, one of the things that I love is when a random stranger hits me up on my comments or online or something and says, "Hey, how can I get involved with whatever movement you're a part of?" It makes me feel good because it's like, wow, somebody's actually listening to me. So that means anybody who is advocating will feel the exact same way that I do, especially if they've been formerly incarcerated. So definitely just reach out to anyone within your network who is doing this line of work, who may be formerly incarcerated or homeless or a recovering drug addict, whatever the case may be, and actually listen to them and what they have to say and support whatever they're fighting for.
That's what's up. I when you said like the person is not their crime, it reminded me of something Maya Angelou said. She said, "I am human and nothing human is alien to me." And so
Mm-hmm.
basically that really changed my life and my perspective on different people. When you hear about, different people committing crimes, given the right situation, you are also capable of those same things. And so it's not right to look at other people like, oh my gosh, they're monsters and all of that, because you don't know the context, you don't know their background, you don't know what types of situations they were in that led them to those types of behaviors. So I love that you said that, they are not their crime, and to give people a chance. One of the things in the Bible is that if we don't forgive and we don't give people chances, God does that for us every single day. So you know what I'm saying? We have to make sure we extend that to other people, and that's how we
Mm-hmm.
show God that we're grateful for the grace and the mercy that he extends to us. So thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, giving us all your insight and wisdom. I really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Is there anything else you want to say before we get off?
Absolutely. If anybody out there is looking to, especially men, if you guys are looking for someone to connect with and talk to, I'm looking to expand my network and actually give you an opportunity to connect with me and see what we can do to not only grow and build together, but also help other young men never feel the same way again, or at least try to help them navigate their emotional state and well-being. If anything, if there's anyone else who would like to reach out to me, my Instagram's thankful champ, thankful underscore champ. I'm pretty sure my sissy here will definitely put that up for you. And that's that's really it.
Yes, I'm gonna definitely put that in the show notes. And he's also single, ladies.
Yes, yes, I am.
We're looking for
Yes,
but I'm big sis, so I'm gonna be hard on him. I'm gonna be hard on you. So just that's correct. But
yeah,
thank you so much for coming on.
absolutely. Thank you.
All right, you guys, I have put Davon's Instagram handle in the show notes. Go follow him right now. He's doing some pretty dope stuff for the community. He's a very intelligent, smart guy who I know we're going to be seeing a lot more of in the future. I'm so proud of him. And like I said, make sure you screenshot, you spread this message, this episode to as many people as you can, because we want to get everybody on board that we can. Change starts with us. So that's the first step of change you can do right there. I appreciate all of you guys for listening, and I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.